Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Kara Williams with the Murray County Chamber and Economic Alliance, and I'm delighted to be here today with my friend Chris Coyne to talk about an upcoming leadership experience. It's going to be Friday, May the 8th from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., and we'll talk more about details as we go along. But I'm so excited to introduce to y'all my friend Chris Coyne. You may know Chris from Muletown Coffee, but what you may not know is that Chris Coyne has many years, and I hate to say it like that because that makes you sound old, but many years of leadership training, development, and executive coaching. And so, Chris, I just want to thank you, number one, for the partnership, for offering this leadership experience. And I know you're a humble guy and you don't like talking about yourself a whole lot, but that's where we're going to start. We're going to start talking about why you're passionate about leadership training and leadership development for people and for organizations. So where'd your passion come from?
Well, can we just first start with an acknowledgement that you said you're delighted? So that makes my whole day there. I mean, if nothing else happens as a result of that, for sure. No, I'm thankful, very thankful to be part of this, and that we're here today, even to talk about it, for sure. My background goes, you'll hear from my goofy accent, as you well know. I'm a New England kid. I retired from the Air Force in 2011, and the latter part of my career, probably the better part of the second half of my career, was spent in leadership development. So it began way back in the late 80s with a leadership school in Cape Cod, and then I was very fortunate to be selected as a member of the faculty at the largest non-commissioned officer academy in the country, which, believe it or not, is in Knoxville. Very few people know that.
I did not know that.
It's at a flying unit there, the 134th, and back in the early 90s, I was selected to go teach there. And you got to understand now, I was not a student by any stretch. I was not a school in me. I was just glad to be on the 4-year program in high school and get out of there. And so I didn't really develop a love for anything academia or learning until a little bit later after I joined the military. But something happened along the way, and as you well know, with the love you have for Leadership Murray and all the things that you do, something happened in there, and a kind of fire was lit. And when I arrived in Knoxville as the faculty, everything changed. So I spent the better part of probably 12 years or so teaching, both on satellite. We taught a lot on video across the country, and then ultimately international, to help leaders really at a very specific level. These were leaders who had a little bit of experience, but not much. And they just needed to grow in confidence, not only in skill, but just in being able to understand the responsibility that comes with being in charge and having to make the decision. So, the military is largely to blame, if you will, for that. I was very blessed later in my career to, this is hard talking about yourself. So, I was promoted to a very high level and had a lot of experience with the executive ranks in the military. And I thought it might segue well into the corporate world. Little did I know, really, the language shift and the mindset shift, really, between the military world and getting into the corporate world. So I began as a speaker, traveled a bit, and did some motivational speaking, which I loved, but it's kind of shallow. No offense to anybody who's watching this who does it. What I was really interested in, which brings us really to today, is what are the people doing in the rows that are taking notes? So I'm saying something that's hitting home, which is great, and you can only, with the lights, you can only see a certain amount of rows, but people are writing, and I'm like, this is a good thing. And I wanted to wait at the end of the stage and ask them, so tell me, what was the learn? What was the takeaway? But most importantly, what are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
Right? Because otherwise, this is just an event. That's all it is. And so shortly thereafter, I left the road and became an executive coach so that I could work more one-on-one with companies. And that was many years ago. The coffee business is a whole nother world. But I still do some coaching for friends. I do some work for some larger companies. I've worked with the government, with the universities. The one-on-one is what really charges me up.
Yeah.
Because what I want to know ultimately is where are you? You've got a very safe person here to talk to about leadership challenges. Where are you and where do you want to go? And let me help.
Yeah.
Right. So that's it in a nutshell.
And we've had many conversations about leadership and leadership development, and I know ultimately your passion is people and helping people be better and help others to be better. So I know where your passion is, and even though I didn't know you in the military, I bet that would have been a really, really fun experience. But I get what you're talking about when you're talking about sometimes you're just sitting in an audience and you're just taking in information. And what we're talking about with this leadership experience is an exchange. It's a dialogue. It's a group project almost. I mean, it's because I think of leadership like I think of parenting. You never really arrive. You never really get it 100% right.
That's right.
And I think there's always something to learn, and there's always a skill that you can improve upon. I think we all have sort of those innate and born skills where we can, we thrive in one area and I need to do better in this area.
For sure.
And I think there's a lot about leadership that can be learned and can be taught, and then to take it and use it to help someone else, I think is the ultimate. The ultimate self-satisfaction is knowing that I'm leading people because it helps the organization be better. It helps my team be better.
Absolutely.
It helps all those things.
Absolutely.
So talk a little bit about your executive coaching, and let's do some name dropping. Who have you coached for, or where have you done some coaching?
Larger companies like some massive manufacturing companies, Denso in Knoxville. I've worked with Chick-fil-A. I've worked with the University of Tennessee. I worked with the largest owner of, believe it or not, of Arby's, a very large franchise owner for years, and I helped all of their executive development for many, many years. And then, and this part is, I need to be very clear in what I did, but I was an executive coach of the White House for 4.5 years for the people who run the White House, not the political side. Not the political side. There are 80 and change there, and I was the coach for most of their senior leaders who run everything to do with Pennsylvania Avenue, and that was a humbling honor, as you can imagine, the kinds of stuff they have to deal with in the course of a day. So, I've also spoken and coached many senior executive leaders in the military, a few CEOs that are more recognizable companies that I still have, forgive me, a very large non-disclosure agreement, so I can't talk about them, except to say these are very recognizable names, and I don't know that it's the name necessarily that's important as much as the diversity of clients that I've been blessed to work with, because whether it's a small startup, which is how I got involved with Muletown Coffee, as you know, 11 years ago. Quote, these two crazy hipsters have opened a coffee shop and I'm not sure they know what they have yet. And so from the small startups and how wonderful that's grown to be to the government, and most importantly to larger corporations who are trying to find somebody that they can trust with what it means to be a leader. The book stuff, we'll talk about academic stuff when we're together in the classroom, but the skill stuff aside, what does it truly mean to take on the responsibility of being a leader, and just how hard that is, as most leaders come to know pretty quickly. But let's talk about how you can succeed, right? And the things that you can do almost immediately to change the paradigm of leadership, to set yourself up for success. Whether you're a CEO or a carburetor manufacturer on a line, and now on Monday you have to lead people for the first time, and everybody in between. Everybody can learn something, including the guy who teaches it. Every time I do it.
And I also think you have to have a level of vulnerability to improve in your
Good word.
in leadership development. You kind of have to do a lot of inward reflection and say, you know, this is where I want to get to, and how can I get there? How can I work on just like developing any skill? You know, how can I improve in this area? And sometimes that can be it means being vulnerable and talking about areas where you know that you need to improve because you've had experience trying to lead a team and you've had challenges and you're like, okay, what can I do as a leader to help move past these challenges with someone else?
That's very well said. You know, if I could just quickly, in the world of education, I'm an educational psychologist by trade, so all of my graduate work and postgraduate work was in that, and I'm just fascinated. I'm such a nerd, good God, I'm such a nerd for how people learn, how we learn, and so you learn when you study the science and the psychology behind it. You realize that any educational endeavor you take on, there's the first three levels of the actual learning process: what you know, what you memorize, what you understand, and then what to do with it. The application level. I do find that I'm a little biased, I guess, but I do find that there are just too many leadership development experiences that don't take into consideration all three of those things.
Yeah.
It's not enough for you to be able to define emotional intelligence. That's a good thing. It's not enough also for you to understand conceptually what it means and where it fits in a leadership world. What's most important is, so what? What do I do with it? Now, how do I recognize my buttons and my triggers and how I can engage that part of the brain to be the very best leader that I can? And there are levels above that, but those three primary are so important when you are exploring vulnerability.
Yeah.
When you're saying to yourself, hey, look, I don't know, I don't have any of those. I don't really know. I certainly don't understand, and I have no idea what to do with this. So we do make a very very poignant attempt in the beginning of our class to make sure we address that for a takeaway, so people understand that they're giving their time, not just the money. The time is very valuable. What are they going to walk away with, and what is it going to mean to them as they get back to their office or back to their work center? That I'm I think most excited about.
So let's talk about the 4 areas that you're going to focus on during this 4-hour period. And we say leadership experience because it's not a lecture.
By no means.
It's an experience.
Yeah. I'm tired of my own voice already.
So
we're 3 minutes into this.
So what are the 4 areas that you will focus on as an attendee in this experience?
Yeah. So the first part of that would be to explain that these are foundational. I mean, we spent my team and I back in 2008. So we spent several days together, taking all of our combined leadership experiences together. And you can imagine the flip charts that were around that room, right? And it was very hard. But the question we kept coming back to is, if you're talking to any level of leadership, a brand new leader, somebody who's seasoned, or somebody particularly now who's at a very high level, who has a strategic view of things, is there a way to narrow it down to criticality?
Yeah.
Absolute criticality. You Google leadership right now, you're going to get zillions of things, right? So if I'm going to, kind of get up and bray about these 4 things, hopefully, and thank you for asking the questions in the beginning about who I am, because it's hard to talk about yourself. But there's, despite my youthful appearance, there's decades of stuff in my head. And so I firmly believe there are 4. And there are many other arguments to be made for other leadership skills. But the 4 that we focus on, first and foremost, is emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
It is certainly not a new concept, but it is one that I think partially doesn't get enough press, because the minute people hear emotion, they think, oh, here we go.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about my feelings.
Squishy, and everybody going to be hugging. That's not what it is. Quite the opposite. It's a very, very, very foundational skill, not only in life. I mean, a lot of our students through the years, they walk away thinking, I learned more about EI from my personal application, my husband and wife and my family and whatever, than I did in the leadership world. But to understand where they come from, why they're such a challenge, and how we harness and manifest the actual intelligence that comes behind emotions is important. So that's the first skill. The second one, I largely believe I could speak about for days alone, and it is, for me anyway, the single point of failure for all leadership levels, and that is the establishment of expectation.
Yeah.
How you establish it, bring it to life, and then how you manage it.
Manage it.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you can very easily give a list of do's and don'ts.
Right.
How do you meet people in the gray area? How do you use the accountability mechanism that is in saying, hey, I expect A or B or C, and let's talk about how to get there, and how to manage that well.
Yeah.
Right?
And then lead them to success.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Because this now gets into, which we talk about later, how to manage conflict,
Yeah.
for example. God forbid, right? I mean, who was it that said something like, the job would be easy if it weren't for people, right? If everybody thought like me, in some abstract world. So the management of expectations is the second one. So emotional intelligence, expectation management. The third one, I kind of stumbled upon as a big brother. I've been a big brother to a young man who's now, oh Lord, I'm not sure how old Kayvon is, 24. We've been together since he was a little boy, 6 years old. And he was the first one that taught me there is a difference between being a mentor, somebody who can help, show you where the rocks are to be able to step on. Super important, of course. But there's a difference between that and coaching. How to invite engagement.
Yeah. How
How to pull out of somebody things that, they might otherwise be hesitant to talk about for their benefit and their growth and their development. And every leader needs to hear this, right? A lot of times, the person you're talking to, they don't want to know what's in your head. They want to be asked, what do they think?
Yeah.
And they want to be given permission to be able to do that. And so, if that sounds a little abstract, it is, but trust me, it won't be by the end of the course when we're together. So there's a huge difference between being a mentor and being a coach, and a leader needs to be able to do both.
Yeah.
A leader needs to be able to know when to speak and when to listen, when to ask good open-ended questions and allow for the silence and allow for people to kind of explore how they're feeling and what they're thinking and be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Because that very, very quickly shows you the right path forward in what your role is as a leader. And then the last one, which I know you and I particularly love, which is team dynamics. And we've talking an awful lot about Patrick Lencioni, the author, who happens to be now a neighbor. He lives in the Franklin area. How great is that?
I can't wait to run into him.
Such a nerd for his work. But you know what happens, right? When you get a bunch of people together, hopefully a group of diverse people. And by that, I don't mean just the way we look and how we practice or whatever. As important as all those things are, just also the experience that we're bringing to the table. So what do you do when you have a diverse group of people together, all working towards a mission? Now, again, bias aside, the military does that exceptionally well.
Yeah.
Taking people from all backgrounds, all walks of life, and creating, a true love and thread for the mission and what we do. Corporate leaders can get the same benefit without basic training and all that stuff. You just have to understand the levels of dynamics, and we're going to go through Patrick Lencioni's book, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, which I maintain is the best ever written out there for that subject, and the pitfalls, where to be aware of the things that happen in a team environment that are taking you off the path. By the way, most of the time when we put this in class, you can see leaders in the class doing this because they already know.
Yeah.
So the challenge now is, what do we do with it? And I'm sure we're going to get there here in a second. But taking emotional intelligence, the expectation of management of expectations, mentoring, coaching, and team dynamics, not death by PowerPoint, but bringing them to life. So we can talk very clearly about what to do with those things when you get back to your work environment. And that leads us to the follow-on, which is what separates Motivate and what we've tried to do from most people. Yeah.
I was going to say, what you've done through Motivate is more than just talking about these 4 pillars. But then this 4-hour experience, in addition, there's even more. So even if I mean, that's great within itself, but there's even more. So I think people need to understand that there's more than just covering these 4 pillars of leadership development and leadership journey.
For sure.
Let's talk about the action plan and the coaching that every participant in this class will get.
Sure. So back to the walking off stage and saying that's probably not the best avenue for me moving forward. The curiosity aspect, but the fulfillment aspect more than anything. So the idea would be, if there's a concept of leadership out there, and you really identify with it, particularly if you identify with it in such a way you go, I'm not very good at that. I wish I was better. At the end of the class, you're going to create an action plan, an individual action plan for yourself, based on one of those 4 skills. Now, the assumption is at least one of them is going to stand out.
Yeah.
You're going to say, here's an area where I could be better, right? There's always, every now and then there's somebody that wants to talk about something else within their leadership world that they're struggling with. That's perfectly okay. But I kind of try to narrow it down to those 4 because they're very rich in content, and there's so much growth and development that can happen there. So I'm going to walk everyone through the exercise of how to create an action plan. Briefly, very briefly, because we'll talk about it more in class. It's based on the psychology behind basic human behavior, that our behavior is driven by deficiency, by need, not by want. Wants are great. I want another cup of coffee right now, but I don't necessarily need it, yeah? So we're going to talk about the basic need behind why you think this is a deficiency, why you feel like you need to improve. Once you identify that, we set a very simple goal and then 1 or 2 or 3 action steps.
Yeah.
So it's super simple. It's easy to execute. It's actually pretty easy to come up with too, once you get to a place where you're comfortable with saying, here's an area I could be better. So we're going to develop that action plan in class, and then oftentimes what students like to do is they like to go back with their supervisor. This isn't mandatory, but they like to go back and talk to their supervisor and go, hey, I went through this class and I got all this good stuff out of it, but here's the area where I want to focus. What do you think? Would you agree this is an area that I could be, I could certainly be better? And so it creates that buy-in also, and the value. And then we're going to get an opportunity to meet one-on-one. And so if I meet 10 people, 9 of them have never had a coach. And so what can you expect from that? Well, you can expect, first of all, I'm always hesitant to say this because people prove me wrong, but for the most part, whatever your leadership challenge is, it's not going to be foreign to me. And I say that not to sound, overinflating. It's just, years and years and years and years, whatever it is that you're struggling with, more than likely I have had experience with. Again, people are very creative and they come out of the woodwork sometimes. Really? Okay. But whatever that gap is, we're going to meet for 30 minutes, which may not sound like a lot of time, but it is when you're focusing on you.
Yeah.
And that's why it's mostly 30 minutes and not an hour, because you get tired of talking about yourself.
Yeah.
So we're going to look at the action plan. We're going to talk very specifically about why that's a goal for you, what it is, what the fruit is, why do you want to engage in that? Because otherwise, this is just another event.
Right.
It's just another class, right? And people have already so many restrictions on their time. So that's really the fruit, not just the knowledge and comprehension from the skill set, but the application and what do I do with this and how do I improve? And we'll get to do that one-on-one, which is my favorite part.
And that's invaluable. I don't know of any other leadership experience that you can go, especially right here in your backyard, and sit down for one-on-one coaching and an action plan, something that you actually learn something and take away immediately, actionable items that you can start the next day.
For sure.
Or even that afternoon. My guess is that if you go through this class, you're going to be up all night afterwards thinking about, oh my gosh, I've got to go in and make some changes to my action plan. Yeah. Or, okay, when I get through with this one, I'm going to do this one next. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can just imagine that it's going to snowball with all the things that you can take away from this.
For sure.
So
Yeah.
we've got the knowledge that we're going to gain, and we've got an action plan that we're going to develop, and we've got a coaching session that we're going to experience while we're there. And there's also books that are involved.
Right.
Lunch is involved.
Oh,
So
yeah.
we're going to feed you. We're going to have a good time.
Absolutely.
We're going to have a good time learning and sitting and being offering value to each other.
Absolutely.
Because I think I want to stress that this is going to be a small group.
Very small.
We're not going to do a class of 100. We're going to do a class of 16 or less.
Yeah.
And being in there and learning from each other and helping each other grow, I think is an invaluable experience as well. So in addition to the learning, there's takeaways. We've got a journal, we've got a pen, and the two books and a workbook.
And a workbook.
And two books.
Absolutely.
So talk about the workbook and the two books that I'm going to take away with as well.
Yeah. So the workbook itself is just, I mean, I would say it's a glorified notebook, but you'll have that as well. It's a way to be able to revisit the concepts because certainly there'll be notes taken, throughout the journey. But I really stress the dialogical part. There'll be a lot of open-ended questions. Through the years, I've become very, very comfortable with silence. So asking a good open-ended question, particularly one that's a higher level, a comprehension level question, requires, an extra few seconds of silence and contemplation. And so the book itself is going to help you capture all of those moments in the class.
A reference guide. It's almost like
go back to it time and time.
Go back to it time and time again.
Yeah. And that's it's designed very intentionally for that, including an area that you can take notes and stuff. The two primary books that we're going to talk about, and I get this question a lot, like, shouldn't they be reading it ahead of time or whatever? Absolutely. If they want to, there's no harm in that. But it's not a requirement for the course.
Yeah.
The first one is Patrick Lencioni's book, 5 Dysfunctions, which again I hold as just such in high regard. And the other one might surprise people, but it's called EI 2.0. And it is a way of, it's a beautiful, it's not written fable-wise the way Lencioni's is, but it's written with scenarios and actual examples throughout the book of the practices of emotional intelligence, both from the self-awareness, self-management side, but also for the social awareness, the team environment, and the relationship of management of relationships. So it's not heavy psychology. It can be, but the way we teach it, it's not. But this book makes it very applicable, very clear. And I like those more as a tool after the class.
Yeah.
Once we've kind of whet the appetite a little bit for them to dive a little bit deeper into it. I do ask that they at least start reading and glancing over them before we have our class, before we have our coaching session. That way, if something comes out of the book, and particularly if they're working on that skill, it's easy to refer back to something much greater than Chris Coyne. Yeah. So those are just very, very helpful resources. And there's so many others that we'll talk about in class. But these two I felt important. They're important enough to get them in their hands so they can take away with them.
And my guess is if you've read the book prior to the class, you're going to reread it after the class.
Without question.
Because you'll read it with a different lens the second time.
Yeah. And what I found is, people do, especially the Lencioni book, a lot of people have been through that. So I tell them, that's great. Now you can take this book that I just gave you and you can share it with somebody.
Yeah.
I know that sounds melodramatic, but
no,
it's true. Somebody could very well benefit from the growth and development in that area. So you can share it with them.
Well, I think there's no higher calling than leaders developing other leaders. So,
amen.
Yeah.
Amen to that.
Well, Chris, I'm so excited. So again, I want to remind everybody, May 8th, a leadership experience with Chris Coyne, president of Motivate and executive leadership coach. We'll be there Friday, May 8th from 8 a.m. to 12 noon. Lunch provided, lots of great discussion, lots of great learning, and actionable items you can take away with. And we'll be at Columbia State Community College, but you can find all of the details on the class at murrayalliance.com/events. And just go to that date and click on that event calendar and you can read all the details and register for the class. If you have any questions or need more information, feel free to reach out to us at the Maury County Chamber office at 931-388-2155, and check out our social media posts about the program as well. So, Chris Coyne, I can't thank you enough for your friendship and your partnership, and I'm so excited for this upcoming class. And I have a feeling it's going to be the first in a long line of leadership experiences that we offer in our community.
Great. Wonderful.
So,
I'm very humbled to be part of this, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Look forward to seeing you all there.